hospitality is a lot different in different countries.
Hmm.
Not just the service nature of hospitality, even when that's on a personal level, but more so like the role that hospitality plays in their national identity and in the culture. Um, I have I'll give my personal experience and then I'll ask about yours. Like living in Russia, I saw that hospitality, like the whole concept of hospitality was flipped on its head from what was in the States,
Hmm.
because in Russia, it was always about um, you need to be a good host. So, like, people come to your house or to your party or whatever, and you need to entertain them. You need to provide for them. You're the host, they're the guest. And this was very clear. Like, these roles were very clear, very important. And in the States, it kind of felt like coming from the States, like growing up there as a kid and everything, it felt to me like, well, in the States, it's more important to be a guest than a host. Like, we have this concept of like the host provided the house, provided the place. So the guests come and try to act very polite and they try to be a good guest. So like the focus is on being a good guest more than being a good host. And so like sure, when you come to someone's house, they might put out snacks, or sure, when you go to someone's house, you might bring a gift, or you might bring chocolates or a bottle of wine or so. Like that's kind of standard all over the place. But there's not this like big push in American culture where like, okay, I have guests in my house, and that means that I have to entertain. I have to dance around. I have to make sure they're happy. I have to make sure everyone has a drink right now without them asking. I have to make sure I've offered food 10 times, even if they said no. You know what I mean? Like there's not this kind of hosting, at least, sure, I've seen it in the States too, but like we're generalizing, but overall, I felt like this was a lot different. And in Russian, they even have like a different way of talking about this. So like in English, we'll say, "Hey, do you want to come over to my house? Do you want to come over? Do you want to hang out? Do you want to stop by? Do you want to do something at my house?" Right? We'll describe this action that we're going to take at the house or at the place. But in Russian, when you ask someone to come to your house, the role is clearly set, because you don't ask them, "Hey, do you want to just come over? Do you want to hang out? Do you want to come to my place?" You say, "Do you want to come in guest?" And basically, like as a guest. So you have to use this phrase to make it clear that this is your invitation to the hosting event. And so from the invitation, the moment of the invitation, the roles are already set in this. Someone's supposed to host, someone's supposed to guest. So if I'm a guest, I might show up with something small, but I know that there's food, there's drinks, there's entertainment waiting for me. And so like I come ready to feast as a guest. Whereas in the States, it's more like I come to your house, and it's I think it's about this respect, right? Where do we apply respect, and who do we apply respect to in different situations? So in the States, it felt more like as a guest, I'm approaching being super respectful, right? Like you've probably seen a ton of times American people, like the host will say, "Hey, oh, do you want some food?" "Oh, no, I'm okay." "Are you sure? Are you sure?" "Oh, well, okay, I will." Like it's kind of polite to say no at first, even if you want it. So like in different countries, this might be different. What's your experience around this topic?
So I've been invited to someone's house in Mexico and Vietnam. In Mexico, what we did, it was very much reciprocal, like in the US, where if it's someone's birthday, of course, you bring them a gift. If they're just coming to, or if you're just coming over to hang out, you might offer them, a drink, or, if you're having dinner, you would offer them a place at the table. And of course, you would make enough for everybody. They're very kind about that. It's not that they're crazy about it. It's that they're open to you about it. You're welcome. You're a friend. Come on in. The door's open. And I see that in a lot of different parts of Mexican culture where they're very welcoming people and they're ready for you much of the time. My neighbors, I would be walking down the street to just go to the OXXO to get something, and they're like, "Hey, you want some chicken?" Because they were barbecuing chicken in the front, and yeah, all the time, like a few times a week at least, I would be walking down the street and say, "Hey, you want some chicken?" And I'm kind of chickened out, but and it's polite to accept, and the food is so good, like all the time. It's so good, man. Every other day, I'm writing on Facebook, "I miss Mexico." The,
Yeah,
the
I went there for 2 weeks and got to do Christmas with a Mexican family and New Year's with them, and um, it was great. It was such a great experience. They were really hospitable, but at the same time, I understood that the people that I was with were kind of like in a higher class. Like they were doing some stuff that I felt like most people couldn't afford there.
they
And
were living that San Pedro life.
yes, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Um, so I felt like I didn't get the down and gritty experience.
I didn't live in Juarez or Guadalupe. I did live in a place that wasn't upper middle class or San Pedro. I lived in a place that was about where I am, about at my class, like lower middle class. Not going to say where it is. I don't want them to feel any kind of way. But I was living by a place where the river was used to carry away the waste, and we
Oh,
would joke about that. My friends and I would joke about that. It was, oh, it's the Rio Caca,
yeah.
and it was okay. It was still warm. It was still a home. Um,
The river.
no, not the river. Not the river.
Warm.
Yeah, that'd be warm, all right. Get a nice fragrance going.
Yeah.
Mud
Let's go
bath.
for a romantic walk by the river. Yeah. So okay, so hospitality in Mexico rather similar to the United States, we could say, I think,
Mhm.
and probably more hospitable coming
You
from American
know,
guys.
compared to some places, yes. I would say it's a lot like how the American South prides themselves on hospitality. They're like that, but they want you to be involved with their family too.
Yeah. Yeah, very family oriented. That's what I saw from my
Yeah.
experience ago too. Um, and then Vietnam. So how was that different in this way?
Vietnam, they still wanted me to interact with their family and their family's friends, and I was invited to people's houses. They were very kind. They had food out. It was traditional Vietnamese food. It was very good. They do so well with seafood. Just I can't recommend it enough. But they all and now Mexico, they did offer me alcohol. Vietnam, they were like, drink, 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 drink. And I was like, yeah. We were doing Tet Holiday. And that was like maybe the third drunkest I've been that year. Um, but
Well, I mean, with all the countries, you have to compare, right? So,
yeah, I forget what I was drinking, but whoa. And we we had some fun with that. When they vacation, they know how to vacation.
that's
And we
fun.
were out in the countryside. It was awesome. It felt like I was visiting my uncle in Texas because Texans they also like to drink. And I was just drinking with their family and having a blast, you know? Lots of really fun hospitality. A lot like Mexico in that way. It's less about the symbolism for the celebration. It's maybe not as much music. In Mexico, they really like their music. Vietnam, they have cultural music. It's very nice. but the focus is on getting together with the family and chatting. Whereas with Mexico, it's about getting together and having a lot of fun together and, you know, eating a lot of food and just, you know, it's it's a little bit different in Vietnam, and it's hard to get in there and describe it. Both of them are a lot of fun. Both of them, they have alcohol, but wow, they want you to drink a lot in Vietnam, at least with my experience.
Have you
They're not
tried the
drunks though. Hmm?
okay?
Yeah.
Have you tried the Vietnamese coffee?
Oh, I drank a lot of Vietnamese coffee.
Good, right?
Oh yeah, that was my morning.
Yeah, I had one classmate in my master's degree program who was Vietnamese,
Mhm.
and she was this tiny, tiny little girl. Like if you saw her from a mile or from a distance, if you saw her from a distance, you probably think that she was like 9 years old, like she
Mhm.
was tiny. And but she was older than me. And we were in the same master's degree program. And one day she was like, "Oh, you have to go to this Vietnamese restaurant and order Vietnamese coffee if you've never had it." And I was like, "Yeah, I've never had it." So ordered it, and I was like, "Wow, this is so great." I'm not a big coffee
Mhm.
drinker to begin with, but it was just this
Totally.
special taste. You are?
Oh yeah.
Or maybe that's our next topic around coffee around the world then.
We could do that for sure.
So let's
Um,
finish up with hospitality though. So we talked a little bit about Vietnam. In Thailand, you didn't really have that kind of experience. It sounded like because did you go to a someone's house or anything like that?
I really wish I had. Um, Unfortunately, I didn't really have any contacts in Bangkok who were available. Um, I had an Airbnb and I just sort of hung out there for the month. People were super nice. I can't say enough nice things about them, but I didn't get to go to anyone's house.
Hmm. I mean, it doesn't always work out like that, right? So
Yeah,
especially when you're traveling the way you do,
yeah,
one man band.
yeah. I'm a rambling man.
Okay, so then hospitality in Turkey, we talked about that a little bit. That was kind of your big hospitality experience, right?
Oh yeah, that was like Mexico. That was like Mexico and Vietnam. Turkey was up there too. Um, I started out in Chile. I didn't know anybody there, but then I went to Üsküdar. Or no, I went to Karakoy, and my contact was in Üsküdar. Or no, my contact was in Umraniye. I was in Karakoy,
Okay.
and I was gonna go to Üsküdar, but we met up and we hung out and we partied at this one bar, and there were friends, and it was really cool. I came ready to pay for myself and possibly them, but no, they paid for everything. Um, and we were dancing and drinking. It was a lot of fun. Love the hospitality in Istanbul, which that's the province of where we were.
Uh-huh.
Very friendly. And then I went down to Ankara and I met with Ozge and her family, and we went out to eat twice, if I remember correctly. Also very friendly, like Mexico, very family oriented, very kind.
So how
in
do you think
Italy.
Argentina compares to, you know, Austria and Italy in terms of, I mean, we talked about safety already, so I guess we could talk about that too. In terms of safety, how do they compare? But also, how do they compare in other ways that people might not be thinking? Because
Mm,
Austria, Italy, these are European countries, and that has a certain level of appeal, uh,
mm.
tourists, right?
Yes, definitely, definitely. Austria, in comparison to Argentina, they're very different opposites here. You've got Austria is very organized, it's all correct, and everything works perfectly. It's very efficient. You've got the beautiful landscapes with the mountains, and it's very different. Uh, I'd say obviously the economy is much better, and the politics are less corrupt as well. So it's a great place to live, Austria. Very stable in terms of the economy, and great people, really friendly people as well. And so it's a great place to live, but it's not as crazy, chaotic as Argentina. And I kind of like that crazy adventure, chaotic type life, you know, because it keeps it interesting, keeps it stimulating. It's not in a box, organized, always the same, you know. That's what I felt in Australia a little bit, Austria a little bit. Italy is where things got interesting, where it was very chaotic, like here. Crazy. They're not logical people. They're very passionate, like Latino type passion, feeling, and really, that's what I fell in love with Italy, the people like that, and had a lot of fun. They're very spontaneous people, like here in Argentina. You say, let's meet for a coffee. Let's do this now. You ask anybody, Chris, in Argentina or Italy, what are you doing this weekend? And we're saying it's Friday, right? It's Friday. It's the day before the weekend. What are you doing? So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. They can't make a decision. They've got so many options, and they just let it happen last minute. So everything's spontaneous, adventure, and no one knows what's happening. There's no planning like there are in Austria. So I love that fun. It's very spontaneous type of life, and it's exciting and stimulating. Yeah, and you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, which is fun. Yeah, if you know what I mean. But Italy is very similar to Argentina in terms of the corruption, the politics, the disorganization. It's backward. Obviously, Argentina is more third world. The economy is worse here with the peso, Argentinian pesos. And I'm not sure if you're aware, Chris, but the inflation here in Argentina is the third worst in the world.
Wow.
Venezuela number one, and then there's a place in Africa, and Argentina's number three. So it's 100% inflation every year, which is huge. 7% a month going up. It's just so. Just to give you an idea, Chris, when I first arrived here 10 years ago, it was 5 pesos for $1. Now it is 500. 500. So we're talking 500 pesos for $1. So
wow.
You can
and to put that in context, how much does a liter of milk or like a liter of Coca-Cola or something that people buy all the time, how much does that cost?
That's a good question. Yeah, I think I'm not buying milk, so I haven't bought milk for a while. But
something you buy all the time.
Yeah, something I buy all the time.
But something that everyone buys around the world.
Yeah, like a bottle of water is 200 pesos. 200 pesos.
Okay.
And so, which is 500 pesos is $1. So we're talking 40 cents, right?
Yeah.
40 US cents for a bottle of water. How much is a bottle of water in the USA? If you buy 500 ml in the kiosk?
Probably more than $1, $1.50, $2.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a little bit more. But the rent here, for example, Chris, I'm staying in a penthouse apartment, beautiful. I pay $100 a month at the moment, which is amazing. Yeah. So that the rent's really cheap. And what else can I give you an idea?
That's crazy. $100 a month is really good, I think.
Really good. Yeah. Like, is it true in the New York, Chris? Some people are paying like $3,000 or $4,000 for an apartment a month. Is that really true?
It's insane, man. Some people rent like mansions for $10,000 a month or $20,000 a month.
My God, 100. So, guys, there's a massive comparison there. I'm living in a beautiful city here, like on the penthouse with a massive balcony in the center, $100 in comparison to 5,000, which is just
I mean, even
mind-blowing stuff.
I live in Tampa, Florida. It would be at least $2,000 a month to rent like a penthouse apartment downtown. Not
Okay,
even
okay.
regular, just a regular.
Just a regular apartment.
And
Okay.
2,000 is on the cheap side. Like that would be lucky. You're probably looking at 3,000.
Wow. So, Chris, that's another thing we can get to in this meeting. If you can work online, living here, man, you can live like an absolute king. It's so, and it's a fun city, fun people. So
yeah, and if anybody listening wants to find out more about that, definitely contact Daniel after this. What are some of the, cultural differences that Turkish people or Turkish speakers usually encounter in the United States? What do you think?
Yeah, that's yes, I actually met a lot of people who struggled. I even in Seattle, I see a lot of Turkish people that are struggling because of the cultural differences. I think when you move to a different country, first thing you need to know is that you need to know the communication differences and cultural differences. Some of the things are not, you shouldn't be offended by some of the things because it's a completely different culture. One thing that I hear from people a lot is like from Eastern cultures, not just from Turkey, but from cultures that are more communal, I would say, or that are more indirect communicators, right? Turkey and Eastern cultures, they are more indirect communicators. And for example, if you were, let's say you're a guest at someone's house, they offer you food, like something. And then sometimes in Turkish culture or in some of the Eastern cultures, it is polite to first reject the food, right? Oh, no, thank you. Just say no, thank you, not to seem eager to get the food. But in Eastern cultures, people would be like, oh, no, please take some of this. Like, you have to, like, please.
Right,
and then they kind of beg you to get some, and then you would take one. So this is considered polite. But then you come here, and if you do that in the US, people, like the host will be just like, okay, because the host offered you, you said no, that's direct. So like you said no, this is your answer. There's no hidden meaning behind it. For the American host, obviously, because of a cultural and a communication differences. So many things like that, they would be like, oh, I actually was hungry the whole night. I would hear people say, I was hungry the whole night. They offered me food. I said no first, and then they took the food away, right? And then they were like hungry the whole night, and then they couldn't eat anything because of just trying to be polite in their own culture.
Yeah. I experienced something similar when I went to Russia. I lived there for 8 years. I lived in Russia. And so, there was a funny phrase that kind of summed it up for me. It was, in Russia, they would say that yes means yes, but no means maybe.
That is
and that in the United States, yes means maybe and no means no.
Yes, that is very correct. And you have to actually know that to adapt to the culture, because then like you may get offended a lot. Like in Turkish culture, when you go to someone else's house, they would always offer you a drink, or you would be always offered something. Like it is considered polite. And if you're, let's say you're in a class and you're eating something, you share it with other people. Again, if you're not sharing it with other people, it is considered extremely rude. But in the US, it's not like that. Like if you're eating your banana in a class, it is your banana. You don't have to share it with anyone. Or if someone, let's say, comes to your house unannounced, or even just like, they come to your house and you don't really have to offer them anything. It's not part of the culture. If you want to, yes, but it is not considered rude. It's just not the culture. So my Turkish friends would find it extremely offensive. They would get angry that how their now American friends are not offering them any food, any beverages when they're in their house, or in a class, how they're not sharing their food. Like they would feel extremely offended and weird about it. And I would just explain, okay, those are cultural differences. They're not doing it to offend you, or they're not being rude. It is a cultural differences. It's a
Yeah.
cultural difference, just to simply put. So these type of things. And then there's
That's interesting, that point too, because this is something, again, with Russians. I think Russian culture is similar, more similar to Turkish than American probably, and so a lot of the things are similar there. And you know, like, yeah, every time somebody goes to someone's house, they always bring out some food and some entertainment, and it's being a good host. But I think the role of host and guest is different in these different places, and that's something hard to understand sometimes. And a question about Turkish, the language, when you talk about going to someone's house, how do you say that? Because, like, for example, in Russian, when you go to someone's house, you say, like, we're going v gosti, and that means we will be a guest. Like, you don't say, I'm going to my friend. Like in English, we say, I'm going to my friend's house. It's going. It's not something special. Like, I go to the library, I go to his house, right? But in Russian, when you're going to the person's house to visit them, you are being a guest. You're going in as a guest. And so, like, there's already this mentality of, I'm going to be a guest.
That is funny you said that. I didn't know that it was a thing in Russian, but there's a similar saying in Turkish as well, which is called misafirliğe gitmek, which is, again, you go somewhere just to be a guest. Like you go to someone's house, to be exact. So when you say misafirliğe gitmek, it is implied that you're going to this person's house and they are going to host you. So you're going to be a guest in that house. And it's a very common cultural thing in Turkey, where you would find a lot of people just doing that activity as an activity. So it's an activity. So, like, yes, we have that too.
Right.
Which is
and so, like, Americans will typically say that there's some kind of event or party if they plan to have this, like, guest host culture, right? Like, if they say, come to my house for my birthday party, come to my house for the Super Bowl, come to my house for 4th of July, then a lot of times they will have something, right?
Yeah, that is, yes. But in Turkey, this misafirliğe gitmek, going someone's house as a guest, does not require any special event. You go there and have tea. That's it. You go there and they should have tea. Like, no way they don't have tea brewing. So they would have the Turkish tea, and they would definitely offer something sweet next to Turkish tea. So basically you would get something to eat, and you would also get some Turkish tea. And it's the thing, like, that they don't require a special event. It's just, you are now a guest in their house.
Yeah.
Activity by itself. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's funny though, because my wife and I, we started to think about our guests, our friends, in a different way. We started to understand that the people who we're not, like, really, really good friends with, that we have to put something out, we have to do this. But with the friends who we're really close with, when they come over, we're just like, whatever. And we'll go to their house, they'll come to our house, no food, nothing. One time they just came over and, like, sat at the table and started working on something for like an hour. Like, they just walked in and we're like, hey, and then just go work for an hour. And then, so, like, to us, that's like the real friendship, is when you can stop all of that stuff and you can just be real,
Yeah, no, for me, it is the same. But I guess in Turkish culture, even like for your close friends, I guess, if you're if you're young, yes. But then again, if you're over, I don't know, 40, I guess still it would be like they would still offer you something.